So today on the Business Spotlight, we're thrilled to host Stephen Gee, who's the dynamic co-founder and CEO of Blend. So Stephen is a true super connector, renowned for breaking down businesses, silos, and unlocking the power of cognitive diversity for enterprise leaders. Stephen, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Good, thanks, David. Nice to see you.
And you. Listen, firstly, thank you for taking the time out of your day to talk to us about your business journey and share with us some of your stories. So it'd be great if you could just kick us off with, a description around what it is that Blend do, what you offer, and what you're all about.
Yeah, sure. So Blend is a membership community for leaders from large enterprise businesses across the world. If you're a C-suite, an SVP leader of a large organization, probably £1 billion plus, then you spend your life in a silo, be that a functional or an industry one. And so our mission at Blend is to create a safe space, a community for these leaders to break outside their silos and embrace this idea of cognitive diversity, which is a relatively new theme, but something that's quite interesting.
Sounds really cool. What did you do before? How did you get into this? What led you to this?
Yeah, so I've spent 20 years of my career so far in the events industry. I like most people, go to university and study something that's completely irrelevant to your career after university. So I wanted to be a volcanologist actually when I went to
Okay.
university. And then when I got there, I realized that there's actually only about 70 active volcanoes in the world, which means that's about 70 active good jobs. And I realized that that wasn't very good. And so I just took a grad job and went into the events industry. Ran some huge things like Mobile World Congress and wonderful events all over the world with all sorts of different places in the world running events. And then for the last 7 or 8 years was running a media and events business, hosting thousands of events a year with predominantly enterprise leaders. And that's kind of how we realized that there was this big gap, this space that existed, where people are kind of naturally, as humans, we surround ourselves with people who are like us, who think like us, look like us, have had similar experiences because it's comfortable. And we do that in business as well. And that's important when you become when you're growing through your career and you want to become a domain expert. But actually, when you're a senior leader and your responsibilities are far broader and far bigger, actually just need to step out of that space. And so that's kind of where we went from this idea of just events into this idea of a community for these leaders.
It's interesting you've identified a piece in the marketplace around real senior leaders of $1 billion pound companies, being lonely to a certain degree in a silo. That's really true to smaller business owners as well. So business community, hence us doing this sort of podcast and stuff to share sort of experiences from other business owners and things. So it's really cool that, actually everybody goes through similar challenges, whether you're as seasoned as someone like Jeff Bezos or a startup, everybody faces similar challenges, don't they? Whether it's imposter syndrome, knowledge gaps, or some areas of focus that will just help create a better result. How long ago did you start the company? When did you found it?
Yeah, so we were founded in 2023.
Okay.
Been working on the business. We launched properly about 7.5 months ago. So we're still shiny and new, still taking the cellophane off.
You're still in the honeymoon period.
I'm not sure about that. No, it's I find it a real privilege, actually, if I'm honest, to build and create a business. We are so we're 7.5 months into properly launching. We're up to about 18 staff, and it's been a fun, crazy journey already. And yeah, it's an exciting time for sure.
What would you say your biggest learnings have been over the last sort of 18 months, or particularly this last 7 months, I guess, from launching?
Biggest learnings. I think when you start a business, nobody tells you actually about the really boring crap that you've got to do.
Yeah.
And you go online and you're surrounded and always kind of pushed with this message around how cool it is to be a founder, or how cool it is to be the CEO of a business, and that everybody should do it, and isn't it amazing? And isn't Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk incredible? And in truth, they don't tell you about the fact that you've got to register with a pensions regulator, and you've got to manage your data processing, and you've got to do all of this wonderful stuff about PAYE and all the things that in truth are frankly ugly and not much fun to do. They're not the sexy part of running a business, but actually it's incredibly important. And um, I think that's a big learn over the first year for us, is just making sure that we follow and do all those things in the right way, but also the time it takes to do those things and to do them properly. I think we've been quite mindful about trying to make sure we do follow all the right steps now to allow us to scale, so that we're not holding ourselves back in time. But there's so many learns. Oh my goodness, things go slower than you expect. Some things go faster. You just, the amount of time you have to put in. I don't think that's a surprise necessarily, but it's the relentlessness of that is both exciting and also sometimes a challenge. When as leaders, we've got to balance families and being a dad and actually at some point trying to get out and do some things like, I don't know, play golf or a game of tennis or something if you can. But sacrifices, I suppose, is also that element in there.
Yeah, I guess, we'll talk about sort of team and work life integration a little bit later, but it's kind of prioritizing and planning that sort of those activities and being present with who you with at the time. You mentioned, it's an interesting point actually. You mentioned around the boring stuff, the regulatory stuff, the pensions, all those sort of things. And you're right, nobody sort of recognizes actually saying this is what being a business lead is all about. There's also a massive risk to the business in future by not doing those things properly in the first place, building those solid foundations. So it's great that you recognise that, and actually you need to have those, because it's quite easy and tempting to go down the route of what's interesting. God, I don't want to do that admin-y stuff.
Ignore it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it can come back and bite you quite hard, especially with things like personnel, HR, government.
Yeah, I mean, one of the first names on the team sheet for us was chief of staff to look after people and HR and all of those things. I think for us, one of the the most important things for us to get in the first year of our business is actually establishing culture.
Okay.
I'm incredibly focused on this idea of creating a culture that we have within the business, within our internal community is in terms of our business, but then how that manifests in our communities, we build it. Because in truth, and particularly in the age of AI and things like this, you can't make decisions for everything. You have to be able to trust people to make decisions on your behalf. And so culture is the way in which you can guide decision making to be in the right positions or in the right ways. So we've tried to work really hard to kind of establish this culture of what Blend is and what it means to be part of Blend, and therefore the sorts of decisions that we will make in the business and the approach to that. And hopefully that means that, again, from a scaling perspective, that allows us to grow, because they're not all relying on me, or I'm not holding things back, or Jeff, my co-founder's not, because we're only two people, and being mindful of those things. But I think often in small business, culture gets forgotten. Because
funny enough, exactly what I was going to ask. So is that something you consciously knew that you wanted to do from day one, or was that something you learned? So something you consciously...
Yeah, and I think that's probably where we're slightly lucky, having spent 20 years listening to kind of some of the biggest leaders on the planet and working with them and being exposed to that. You kind of hear the stories of those organizations that went from zero to billions, and some of the things that that people shared as like, what were the reasons why you got there? And some of it, yes, product market fit, you've got to have it, and you've got to have key people in the right places. But culture was always this thing that kind of stuck out to me, that actually if you can get the right culture in the business, you attract the right talent, and you build the right product market fit, because you've got the right people in the organization who are building and creating the right things. So I think without that, we were very mindful that it has to be in there from the start. And
such an important... Sorry, I just cut across you. It's such an important point to have in mind, because it helps you shape the decisions that you're making, from recruitment to who you're going to work with, all sorts of different facets. If you've got a clear idea of the vision, the culture and things like that. And quite often I ask people, do you think big companies have got big because they've had that focus around culture, or have they got big and then realized they needed to have that culture? It's kind of that chicken and egg type.
Yeah, I think both exist. But I think definitely in my experience, the ones who do a better job of scaling and probably are more successful in the longer term are ones who have culture from the start.
Okay.
Because it's in their DNA. And I think, my view is that the business, whether I'm on holiday or I'm on meetings or I'm traveling or, we're both sides of the Atlantic. So 80% of our community is in North America, and the rest is here in London, in the UK. And if I'm not present or Jeff's not present, we need the business to make the right decision when we're not there.
Yeah.
And I think that ultimately comes down to culture. So for us, yeah, absolutely, building block, a foundation block of what we're trying to create, and hopefully that remains and stays and outlives us in lots of ways. Hope.
I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will. If you had the opportunity to go back those sort of last 18 months or so and start all again, is there anything that you would do differently? And if there was, what sort of things would you do differently?
Ooh, that's a great question. Probably being a bit more realistic about expectations of how quickly things will happen. I think in established businesses, things tend to happen a little bit quicker. There's this sweet spot between kind of small, medium size where things can happen quite fast, and then into enterprise where things can take a long, long time to do. And I think when then you're starting and you're a micro business on day one, realizing that things don't happen as quickly as you think they can. I think we would have been a bit more mindful about some of our timelines to start with, or how we targeted or financially planned the first maybe 3 or 4 months of the business. But not massively, I don't think, in terms of what that's meant to us now. I think maybe relying on external expertise a little more from around those kind of more boring bits, as I've called them, those kind of leaning on experts when it comes to setting up, payroll, PAYE, pensions, all this kind of stuff. That actually, is that the best use of your time as a leader? And I think, look, having gone through it, and I've learned a load of stuff that will I need to know that every day? Well, maybe not, but at least I know it inside out, and it's in our business. But I think in time, if I was going back, I'd probably take a little bit more assistance from external advisors who are experts in those things, just to make it happen faster and to save my time to be focused on the things that drive revenue in the business and drive a better product.
It's you say about the culture thing being a common theme amongst the sort of bigger businesses and their success. What you've just described there seems to be a common theme amongst entrepreneurs growing their businesses, recognizing your own strengths, where to spend your own time, where's the best investing your own time, but also then getting the right people around you to support you in those areas that actually you're not best placed to do. And we all do it, don't we? We all go, oh, okay, well, I can figure it out, and I'll spend 2 hours trying to actually, just get an expert to do it. They'll do it in 10 minutes. Sometimes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and a kind of a bit that sits with that is, that idea that you might be the best person in the business to do that job, but it doesn't mean you should be doing that job, because the opportunity cost of you not doing that and doing something else might be greater. And that's quite a hard thing as a leader to do, and accept that maybe you give it to somebody else in the team to do, and it won't be done how you want it to be done. It will be done in a different way, and that's okay, because you've not had to do it and you're then doing something else. But that's quite a difficult thing for people to do, and to be accepting of the output or quality of what that is. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse, and you just have to accept that that's okay.
Yeah, what was I reading recently? I can't remember where I got it from, but it's kind of as an entrepreneur growing and getting team members around you, you need to be sort of almost comfortable with the concept of somebody doing something 80% as well as you think you can do it. If you can benchmark that and go, I'm okay with myself if it's 80%, because naturally you just want it to be perfect. And
yeah, in fact, it was in one of our early podcast episodes that we record in our Full Forward podcast. We had the chief brand officer of De Beers, and he said exactly that point. He's like, you have to accept that 80% is okay, because it's an opportunity for them to learn and grow, and at the same time you're free to be doing other things. And, so it's hard though. To learn to take your hands off is difficult.
Yeah, very hard. So team wise, then, up to 18 staff, what sort of qualities do you look for when you're getting the right team around you, and then how do you create that sort of productive working environment that fosters the right decision making if you're not available?
I think it goes back to that the culture piece to start with. So we almost on week one wrote ourselves, Jeff and I sat there and wrote out what are our core principles as people and then as a business.
Okay.
And we kind of wrote them out and stuck them on the wall, and everything's kind of come from there. And then as we've brought people into the organization, we've kind of reviewed them, and just A, it's an opportunity for them to make sure they're aligned, and B, it's also an opportunity for us to check that they're still relevant and that that's things that we're living by. And those are things like around kindness, they're around doing the right thing. We have a no Richards rule in our company, which means we won't work.
No Richards.
A no Richards rule. Yeah.
Okay.
No offense to anyone who's called Richard. It's not about your name. It's actually about that we won't work with dicks or have any dicks in our organization. So excuse the language, but it's an important rule to us, because actually one of the things in our culture is that we should be supportive and collaborative and allow and create a space in our business that allows people to fail, so that they learn, and accepting that failure is okay and it's a big part of everyone's learning journey. But provided you're failing with the right guardrails and the right support, then that's an opportunity to innovate and learn and hopefully go faster in lots of different areas. And creating that environment, we call it like psychological safety, that you're safe to be able to fail, but you're also safe to put your hands up and say, I don't think we should do it like that. I think we should do it like this.
Really important.
And that can be quite uncomfortable for us as leaders sometimes, because we might know the right way to do it, but you have to go through the process of getting everyone on the same page and accepting that we might do it differently to learn that we might have done it the way you wanted to do it in the first place, but you've got to do that in order to create the right environment and create the right culture. So all of those things have been really important. And then when we think about like recruitment and building our team, most of the time CVs get chucked out the window. I'm not really looking for 40 years of experience or that you're the best person ever on paper. I want to see how you approach your application process to the business. Have you gone the extra mile? Have you reached out to me or Jeff individually? Have you what's unique that you're bringing to Blend as an organization that will challenge us to think differently about what we're doing or inspire us to do new things? Because if I wanted another person that we've already got in the business, then that's not going to make us better. It's only going to repeat what we're already doing. And so we look at our teams and our departments and try and really also embrace this idea of cognitive diversity that we have, which is, if I have a breadth of experience, a breadth of knowledge, a breadth of experienced people, then I'm able to challenge myself and my teams to really think broadly in how we solve and how we build things. And that's kind of how we go about it. And then it's very much about building trust, both through the recruitment process and also through then onboarding and working with staff. I think it's incredibly important and often undervalued. At the end of the day, our employees are choosing to spend their time with us every day. Yes, we pay them, but they're choosing to work with us. They're choosing to work for me and Jeff.
Yeah, well, there's a common thing that at the moment that actually people that want to go to work for a company, they want to see what they're going to benefit from being, what that Haslow hierarchy of needing is. What's their sense of belonging, sort of thing. So it's the days of having a job and getting paid Monday to Friday, 9 till 5, kind of aren't there anymore. People are looking for a purpose themselves. Yeah,
exactly. And I think if you can align to that, then obviously through the recruitment process is important. But it's, I'm sure we don't get it right every time. Nobody does, but I think so far we've done a pretty good job of onboarding and building the right culture of people in the business. And yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed, we can keep doing that.
What I like about all that is that there kind of feels like there's a real synergy around, like you say, that culture piece, being honest with what your internal politics are of your own personas, aligning them to the business, being open and honest with the team members you bring on, having that environment, like you say, that safe environment where people can voice an opinion. And that's, as leaders, that's you guys leaving your ego at the door as a business owner or a co-founder and actually letting people have that environment to speak of, having the no Richards and building the trust. There's a lot of synergies with I'm going to talk about a topic at the moment with England and Gareth Southgate. There's a lot of synergies with what he's doing with the team at the moment. and
Yeah,
having,
yeah.
just good people that want to work together on the team. Don't always get it right, and they're not always necessarily as good as they could be, but the culture feels like it's a much better culture than it has done in the past.
Yeah, I think hopefully we'll achieve a few more than 1-0 wins
Yeah,
but I suppose there's also a learning there that also like not to worry always so much about the performance but the outcome.
okay.
Um, which I think is definitely a Gareth Southgate thing. He as long as he's winning, he does not. I don't think that bothered about how he wins. Um, as long as he's got a togetherness in the team and they're working for each other, and I think I think that very much resonates with me. Um, but I think it's something we've tried to be mindful of from the start, and if we can keep that core, then at the end of the day, I've always been told, David, and in any job, whether that's running a business or whether you're in a role, you should be trying to make yourself redundant. You should be training and supporting and guiding the people around you so that they can do what you're doing and you can be free to do new things. That keeps your world in an interesting place and an exciting place to be in, and B, you're then driving growth. You're creating growth by doing so, and so if we can keep doing all those things, then
Very
fingers
true.
crossed, we'll be all
Very
right.
true. Where do you see yourself in the business in the next 5 years? Where do you see it going?
Good question. So the purpose of the community is all about helping our members to be better leaders by accessing diverse thoughts. So CMOs are always surrounded by CMOs. How do we get CMOs meeting CFOs, CIOs, broadening their understanding and their access to ideas and knowledge.
Yeah.
And if we can get all of those leaders to embrace this idea of cognitive diversity, where you intentionally build your teams or your project teams with people who have diverse backgrounds, who have different experiences, who think differently and different perspectives, then they will become more successful. All the data shows that a more diverse set of people and thinkers makes you a more successful team, both financially, operationally, through happiness, all these things. And if we can get our members to embrace this idea, and our members are the largest organizations of the planet, then in turn, hopefully, we can have a real impact on how these large organizations view diversity as a topic.
Yeah.
Because our belief is it's not what you look like or where you come from or how you identify or any of these boxes that we put ourselves in as humans. It's actually about how you think, what exists between your ears that is of value to your organization. And actually, if we can encourage our members to embrace it, and then our members do embrace that, collectively, Blend could have a huge impact on how these organizations recruit, employ, and build diverse teams in their business. Because by definition, if you embrace cognitive diversity, you should end up with more women in leadership roles. You should end up with more neurodiverse people. In fact, more people of every different background, ethnicity, social profile, whatever it might be, in order to build those diverse teams, but with a business outcome attached to it. You're not doing it because it's the right thing to do. You're doing it because it's better for your business and it's better for your team. And so that for us is our 5-year mission, is can we in 5 years' time, can there be a headline somewhere in Times or whatever it might be that says, wow, this is now a really important way in which organizations view diversity through the lens of cognitive diversity. And it allows us to open the doors to more diversity in how we currently view it, through all the different groups of social structure that we have.
It's a great cause. It's a great mission. The world is such a small place these days that if, as a business owner, you're ignoring that diversity, then the lifespan of your organization is clearly not going to be able to survive the future, I don't think. So it's a great thing to be working on. Fantastic. Listen, it's been really good to hear about that. I'm sure there's a bright future and you're going to go and deliver those ambitions and things like that. Where can our listeners go to find out a little bit more about Blends, sort of what you're doing, who you're working with and things like that? Where can we point them?
Sure. So 2 great places. LinkedIn is a great place for us because that's where our community, a lot of our content is seen externally. Our community is private. So if you're a member, you can obviously see everything that's happening, but you get a bit of a window through LinkedIn. So check us out on there, or our website, which is www.joinblend.com, or reach out to me. I'm more than happy to reach out to me if you've got questions or like to know what we're up to, or frankly, anything. I'm pretty open book, and like you, David, happy to help people. And if we can share our advice and experience and learn from others too, then hopefully we're all in a better place.
That's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Stephen, thank you ever so much for taking the time to join us today. It's been great. I appreciate it.
Pleasure. Lovely to speak to you too, David. Nice to connect.